Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Rocha Revolution here on Substack. We've got a great show for you today. I've invited a friend of mine from my great home state of Texas, Katy Padilla Stout. Katy, thanks for joining the Substack.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
Now, for those of you who've been watching, we've been interviewing, I've kind of got on a kick the last few months, and we've been interviewing Latino and Latina candidates from all over the country. We've heard from Latino candidates from, get this, Katie, from New Hampshire for Congress, from Michigan from Congress, from California, all over the country. I think we've had Bobby on from Texas, but I want to make sure that we had Katie on because a lot of things have happened in the 23rd Congressional District. And now I'll have her explain where the 23rd is. But for all of you scoring at home and for all of you nerds, and you are all mainly brown nerds like me and Katie, is that you'll remember this district is the district that Tony Gonzalez represents. And for any of you who've been following the news for more than 10 seconds, you know that he's gotten himself in a little bit of trouble, so much so that he said he's not going to run for reelection. He decided he wasn't going to run for reelection after making it through the runoff with a guy that I'll have Katie explain who he is, called the AK guy. Good Lord. But he's going to be the one that's going to be the Republican nominee. But I wanted Katie to get on here to give us her read of the landscape. Before you do that, sister, tell our viewers a little bit about you, a little bit about where you come from and your family's journey to Texas, and then we'll talk a little bit about your the reason you're running.
Sure. So I was born and raised in San Antonio, Texas. I primarily lived with my mother here, kind of in north central San Antonio. I'm a graduate of Lee High School. I attended the University of Texas at Austin, Hook 'em Horns, and I received an elementary teaching degree there. I went on to be a public school teacher. I eventually found my way to law school and have been practicing as a child welfare attorney for about the last 7 years.
That's awesome. So tell me how somebody born and raised in San Antonio who's a school teacher who's been giving back to your community, why in the hell would you want to run for Congress?
So I wanted to run for Congress because I just saw that the representatives we had were not really representing the people. And I think a good example of that was the federal government in regard to SNAP benefits. And so in working with the child welfare community, a lot of my clients relied on SNAP as a way to be able to eat. And a lot of, foster parents get SNAP, people who are, below a certain income level get SNAP, but that also includes our elderly population. And so that really kind of hit home, and it was going to hit home for about 500 of my clients that weren't going to have access to food, and we weren't quite sure how we were going to meet that need. And I just felt the call to go ahead and start exploring and decided to run.
That's awesome. That are tuning in, this is Katy Padilla Stout, who's running in the 23rd Congressional District. And I was just making a note here. I've been going to San Antonio and working in San Antonio since 1996 when I was sent there by the AFL-CIO to run a special election on the South Side after, these are really old names, you're too young, but a guy named Frank Tejeda had passed away. And when the Tejeda family, who was a big power broker in San Antonio, passed away, they ran one of their brothers against a young state rep named Ciro Rodriguez. Uh, and 13 other well-qualified Democrats in that race. And there were 15 people, Katie, running in this open primary in Texas. And the AFL endorsed Ciro, who was a young state rep at the time. And so I lived with him in Carolina and helped run that race with a group of folks when I was a young man, when all this hair on my face was black and I was much skinnier. And I got to live in San Antonio. And I tell a funny story in my book about it was there where I discovered breakfast tacos. Now, I was an East Texas boy growing up on a farm in East Texas, so I knew a lot about barbecue and Mexican food, I thought, but not these breakfast tacos that would actually get block walkers to show up to block walk if you showed up with paper bags with grease stains on them from the tacos. I learned it was a secret weapon of you organizers down there in San Antonio. We'll get to the food portion of this in a minute at the end because I know I love talking about San Antonio food. I think the
Well,
next question. Go
my
ahead.
my husband's actually from East Texas, and so I'm the one that introduced him to breakfast tacos, which is
Shut up. What town is he from in East Texas?
so he grew up in the Conroe area, and so he was out there, but I guess they don't have breakfast tacos as a staple there, so
No.
he was pleasantly surprised.
Y'all keep that a secret over there for good reasons, and I understand why now. So let's talk about the 23rd. For those of you who think the 23rd is just all these rich elites in San Antonio, it is not. And I say that in jest because San Antonio is quite a diverse city. But it takes in parts of San Antonio, and this district goes all the way along the border. And I want you to talk more detail about it, Katie, but it goes all the way to El Paso. So for
Mhm.
those of you thinking who ain't never been to Texas, you can take off driving from San Antonio and drive for probably, Katie, more than 4 or 5 hours and still be in the congressional district. Is that true?
Oh, you would be probably in a third of the congressional districts.
Please explain to our viewers how big this is and some of the different places it represents.
Sure. So our district goes all the way from San Antonio, kind of a crescent of San Antonio, all along the side of Bexar County, all the way up to El Paso. So it goes through West Texas, the Big Bend area, all the way until we get to El Paso. But then it also goes further south than Bexar County. So we'll follow Bexar County down and go all the way down to Uvalde and Maverick County. So
And
26
go.
counties in total.
26 counties. People know you said Uvalde, which makes people's ears perk up because of the horrific shooting that happened down there. You mentioned um, El Paso. So it's in the El Paso media market. It's also in the San Antonio media market. And when Katie says that it's a crescent, think about San Antonio being my fist. And a lot of this district wraps around San Antonio. On the west side where it comes in, it's got part of these north, but it's also got a chunk of this south side too around for those nerds like us around the Castro district and a few of the other districts that are around San Antonio. And then can you tell folks some of the other districts? I think maybe Del Rio is in there and a few other cities that are in this district that are call them medium to small size little cities.
Yes, we have Del Rio, we have Eagle Pass, we have Uvalde and El Paso. Presidio County is also in there where Marfa is. So a lot of people know that as far as a vacation destination. And so, yes, we have a lot of diversity here in the 23rd.
And help remind me, I think the last time this thing has been gerrymandered so many times, and y'all should know that the old gray bearded Mexican have been working in this race myself, going back to Henry Bonilla, which is way, way long time ago. Even when Henry Cuellar ran in this thing for a while, I'm showing my age here. But this district is a majority Latino district, right?
That is that is correct. Yes.
So when me and Mike Madrid on the Latino podcast talk about the congressional districts that will make the biggest difference in who wins the House of Representatives, these are one of these districts. On paper, you would think, and don't be fooled for those of you watching, that this is a very Republican district because on paper in the last presidential election, maybe it was an R plus double digits Republican district, but that was a vote for Donald Trump. Donald Trump will not be on the ballot this time. And as we have all seen, in special elections, even as recently as this Tuesday, there was a 23-point overperformance in the special election in the Georgia race. And in the last primary, and we all knew that I worked with James Tallarico and a number of other folks in Texas, there was an overperformance. So if you take the average overperformance of what we're seeing, this district is very much in play. And my question to you is this, Katie, as you have now, and we'll get to the history on the Republican side. I want you to talk about who your opponent is and how crazy he is. But when you start talking to folks in the primary, when you were out, I saw you knocking on doors and doing community meetings and going to town halls and really listening to the voters. Tell the voters, tell the folks on this Substack some of the issues that are really driving the anxiety that I've been seeing in the Latino and this working class communities around the country.
Well, I think number one across the district for all people, it's affordability, especially with the gas prices going up and the job market here in the economy. I think a lot of people are just worried about how they continue to keep even the status quo that they've had. People aren't even talking about trying to expand or to grow. They're just hoping they can hold on to their homes, they can hold on to their jobs, they can be able to afford, to pack lunch for their kids, those sort of basic things that they've become accustomed to. And so across the board, whether we're talking with upper middle class voters or lower middle class voters, anybody we talk to, it's affordability across all spectrums. People are obviously really concerned about the detention center. So not just the immigration policy itself, but also the fact that we're looking to put another two detention centers in the 23rd, one that they are trying to propose for El Paso, and then obviously the Dilley Detention Center, which was where Liam Conejo was, that brought national media attention to the plight of the detention centers, is also in the 23rd.
And we're going to do this a couple times throughout this podcast because I want folks to share Katie's content. I want you to go to her website and give a donation. We're going to give her website throughout. And Katie, if I have the right one, and I'm looking at you right now on my computer, is katieforcongress.com.
That's correct.
And are your social media handles the same?
They are. So Katy Padilla Stout for Congress, and then Katy 4 with the number 4 for Instagram.
Oh, that's awesome. Y'all should go there, check out some of her videos, some of the great pictures, but most importantly, go to that donate button because Katie's done most of her fundraising with low dollar, community based organizing in her primary race, where she was raising money from grassroots and from lots of activists around the country. Katie, you mentioned affordability, and that's exactly what I've been hearing as well. I'd like for you to go a little deeper, then we'll talk about some of your opposition that you're running against and what your campaign strategy is. But when folks talk to you about affordability, and I think it may have changed now with the war and the way that gas prices have went up because of how much people drive in Texas. Folks realize there's not a high-speed rail in Texas. There's not a subway in San Antonio. When people to you say affordability, tell our listeners what they're talking about or some of the you don't have to repeat the stories, but are they talking about gas? Are they talking about chickens, eggs? Are they talking about healthcare or utility? Or are you hearing a spattering of all the above?
Definitely all of the above. Clearly, I'm in more mom circles, right? And so moms are just talking a lot about how they're going to the grocery store and they're spending $100 and it looks like they spent five, right?
Wow.
Or they're trying to spend $500 a week on groceries to try to feed their kids when they used to spend 250. And so I think we're really kind of seeing those numbers inflate and people are really starting to have to look at their budgets to make sure that they're budgeted accordingly.
So now let's talk about your opposition, and what I want you to explain is why you've got yourself in the position that you're in. There is a runoff election, and please, first of all, tell us if that runoff election is still going to happen, even though the incumbent Republican has dropped out. Will that still happen, or have they just called it off?
They've called it off. So Brandon Herrera is their presumptive nominee.
So, for those of you who don't know, you should Google Brandon Herrera. Maybe put dash AK. That's Alex Kite guy, like AK, like the gun AK. He is a gun advocate. I'll let Katie explain who he is, but you first tell us who he is and how he got here, and then tell us the contrast around what he's been campaigning on and what you've been campaigning on.
Well, the good news for democracy is the voters could not have two more different candidates before that. So you are going to have options. You're going to have two very different options. And I think that that's really, really important. That's a reminder to get the kids.
All good, all good. You still with me?
Yes, yes, I'm here. Sorry, our Alexa. So essentially he is, he's not from Texas. He's from North Carolina, I believe. He's essentially a gun manufacturer, but he makes the majority of his money being a YouTube personality, being able to showcase different guns, to be able to then sell them, I guess, in the place of his employment. So he's come on the record and just said that he was really upset that Representative Gonzalez had voted for an act that was brought before Congress after the Uvalde tragedy that would put some sort of common sense, safe, reform. It wasn't much, but it was a little bit, and it didn't really affect Texas much. But Mr. Herr was upset about that, and so decided to move to Texas in 2021 and decided to put his name on the ballot. He wasn't registered to vote here in Texas, so he couldn't, vote for himself. But he did run against Tony Gonzalez in that primary, pushed him to a runoff, and then only lost by, I believe, about 400 votes.
Wait. So this guy lived in North Carolina and moved to this congressional district just to run against the incumbent,
Yes.
and then got within 400 votes of beating an incumbent Republican. And the only thing he really had to run against him on, if I'm hearing this correctly, is like, oh my God, Tony Gonzalez is not crazy enough on restricting guns because he made some kind of little common sense thing because he represents Uvalde where children were shot,
Mhm.
and that was his stance.
Yes. He was censured. Tony Gonzalez was censured by the Republican Party for voting for that. And so that was kind of a contention within their own party. And so Mr. Herr used that in that election.
So I don't want to talk anymore about him. This election is going to be about you, but I just wanted folks to see that there's a true contrast here. Katie talked about growing up in San Antonio in community. She talked about being an advocate with lots of other mothers in her community, being a lawyer, being legal aid, like all the things that folks, when you think about what do you mean when you're active in your community? I could not draw a better picture than what Miss Padilla Stout has done with her. And that's contrast that with somebody who just moved here in 2021 because he was pissed that the incumbent Republican wasn't far enough right. Chuck Rocha's words, not Miss Padilla Stout's words, but I'll say that's a very big contrast. So the next question to you is, as a campaign guy, and this is we talk a lot about, and feel free to get as nerdy as you want, then you must have a strategy. Even because you have such a difference in contrast of visions for what this community would want representation for. With a district that's pretty 50-50, it's a little bit more Republican, but it's pretty much down the middle, maybe 45-55, whatever. In an off-year election where you're just going to get the base of the Republican Party and the base of the Democratic Party really voting, if it's like the primary, there'll probably be a few more extra people show up because they're really that pissed. Give us some insights without giving away all your secrets of like what your campaign strategy is to win this thing.
Well, our campaign strategy is definitely to be out in the communities to make sure that we have strong representatives of each community. As we've stated, this district is incredibly large. So we've broken it up into 4 different regions, which would be El Paso, Bexar County, South Texas, and then West Texas in the Big Bend area. So we're making sure that during this time when we are really building our campaign, that we have strong supporters in each of those regions who can really help us to be successful. Another large part of our campaign is going to be welcoming those crossover voters. The first day after Representative Gonzalez decided that he was not going to seek reelection, I was very surprised that the majority of people ringing my phone or sending us emails were Republicans.
Wow.
And that was a big shock to me. And they were essentially saying, we have voted Republican in the past. I've never voted for a Democrat before, but that man will not represent me. And so let us know how we can help. And that was really great to kind of see that spirit because we know with these numbers, yes, we're going to have an influx in Democratic voters, I believe, with the blue wave that everyone's talking about. I received 7,000 more votes than Mr. Gonzalez and 7,000 more votes than Herrera. I'm the only one that was able to come out of this primary as a clear winner, meaning I received 52% of the votes. We had 4 candidates running, so I received more votes than all of the other 3 combined. Mr. Herrera has never won a primary with that kind of support. So I think that we have a really good chance here to even broaden the pie even more and bring in those moderate, common sense Republicans, independents, moms who really just want someone at the table who understands what their issues are.
It's not lost on me, and I'm going to slow down here and recap something that you said that's really impressive. Miss Padilla Stout does not have a runoff. She's not in a runoff, even though her opponent was forced into a runoff because him or the incumbent did not get to 50%. She got 52% of the votes with 3 other people in this race with her. So she's already run a pretty impressive primary where almost always, if there's that many people in an open seat, nobody gets 50% of the vote. Take it from the old white haired Mexican. You don't have to take this from Padilla Stout. But I'll just tell you that that's pretty impressive. With that being said, you're a first time candidate, right?
I am. That is correct.
And so I didn't know if you'd run for some school board because you've been so damn active. I didn't know if you'd run for sheriff or mayor for all I know. But as a woman, as a mother, as somebody who's already been involved in the activists, I mean, being an activist, being, what you do with mothers and other things, I'm always struck. And again, my wife has been a first time candidate. She's run for local council here in DC as a woman of color. I get the challenges and watched her and others go through the trials and tribulations of being a first time candidate, stressful. And you want to do a good job, but you're not really sure if you're doing everything right because you're a first time candidate. And sometimes when you're a first time candidate, you don't have a grade A consultant with you all the time telling you every move to make, which sometimes is not even the right moves. My question is, that's the Chuck Rocha windup. My question is, what advice do you have for other first-time candidates? Like, what are the things that you've learned now that you wish you'd have known 4 months ago that you would advise a young woman listening or a young man listening now who are thinking about getting involved themselves?
Well, I will speak first to the females out there. I think what I was really happily surprised by was the amount of female candidates who had run before. Dr. Kristen Hook, Christian Carranza. They had all run campaigns before and had run really great campaigns, but were really apt and really quick to reach out to me and say, "Hey, what do you need? Have you done this? Have you talked to this person? Can we connect you over here? Can we invite you to this meeting? Do you want to host a joint fundraiser?" And so I think that if you decide to jump in, it's a really small pool of people, but they are all very welcoming, very encouraging, very helpful. I was really lucky and fortunate in the sense that my family had been friends with Representative Charlie Gonzalez, who had served in Joaquin Castro's spot prior to him taking over. And so I had breakfast with Charlie and said, "Hey, this is what I'm thinking of doing. What do you think I should do?" And he was able to kind of really sit down with me and help put me in touch with some people that he felt would be very helpful. And we were able to get started with some more professional eyes than I was able to bring to the table on my own. And so we were very thankful for that.
Charlie Gonzalez, man, I haven't heard that name in a few days. I love Charlie, the judge, as I call him. I actually was honored to know his father back in the day, who, if any of you who go to San Antonio, the convention center is named after him. He's one of the original CHC members, and he's just a living he was an icon in the day, and Charlie took his place when I was a young organizer in San Antonio. But it's always good to have those people. I tell people all the time, uh, Katie, that and I've been fortunate to get some advice like you have, right? I remember when I was the kid, and I was always the youngest person there with him and Ciro and Sylvester Reyes and Solomon Ortiz and all those old guys when they were in Congress. And I was the 30-year-old political director of a labor union. It's really good that we have those kind of people in our community.
Mhm.
I can see how your life would have been turned upside down. Nobody was really paying attention, and this is no reflection on you. This race, you were running against a Republican incumbent, who may or may not have been vulnerable in this wave year. There's definitely gonna be a wave year. Would the wave been big enough to beat him? Would your candidacy been big enough? I still think it would have been, but lots of folks would have been naysayers because it was a big race, right? But it wasn't in the top tier of what folks were focused on because there were so many other things. Everybody's talking about Bobby Polito, and they should, in other races, Vicente. But everything changed for you when Tony really decided that he was not gonna seek reelection in his own runoff, and then, as you described, your phone started ringing, Republicans reaching out to you. It reminds me that, in something that James Tallarico says a lot is that we should be looking at what we have in common with folks, no matter their party, not the small little things that may separate us, but all the things that bring us together, which I know that's what you were talking about. Can you tell some of the listeners when you were thrust into the spotlight and then everybody was in love with Katie, when nobody would return your calls 2 months ago? Tell me some of the bigger surprises and some of the things that you got to see with that happening all of a sudden. I've asked you to give advice, and thank you for that, but give our listeners how you went from 0 to 100 and some of the things that really has been surprising over the last 4, 5, 6 weeks since the primary.
Well, it's so funny you say that because once it happened, I mean, that night, I think the news broke around 6 p.m. And I was on the phone with reporters until close to 12:30 at night. And
Wow.
I was surprised because lawyers have bad hours, but our hours are not that bad. Typically, journalists were really, really quick to kind of jump on that. And there were people, like you said, who, people were reaching out and saying, "So and so is looking for your number. Can I give it to them?" And I'm like, "Of course, I've been trying to reach them for months. They have my information in their inbox." But yes, by all means, give them my cell phone. And so it was nice to kind of see that camaraderie come together. I think that first day when we had that huge media storm, my poor my staffer that's here, my campaign manager right now, we were just going, 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 and then at 5 p.m., we realized, "Oh my gosh, we've never been eating breakfast." We're like, "We have to eat." It's 5 p.m., and we haven't even eaten breakfast. It was just so busy, and then we were sitting there. We decided to go to Luby's. It was the closest place to us, and so we went there, got food really quickly, and then my friend sent me screenshots of the CNN, snippet that you were on, that segment, and so we just kind of had our, "Oh my gosh, like, we're on CNN," and it went from 0 to 60 and really, really quickly.
That is awesome. For those of you listening, I'm going to give you the website again because I'm now getting text messages from people that are listening, putting in Katie the wrong way on the internet, who are trying to actually go to your website to donate, which is exactly what I want you to do. It's Katy then Congress.com if you want to go. Hat tip to Sean and lots of folks who are trying to donate right now to your campaign because they're listening live, and then we'll be putting out the clips later. So again, Katy there's lots of ways to spell that, but it's Katy for this episode for the things we're doing. We've talked about the race. We've talked about the
Mhm.
geography. We've talked about your opponent. We've talked about your family's story of coming to San Antonio. Tell me about, and indulge me here, is that when you run for Congress, again, I've run a lot of people for Congress, and I talked about living with Carolina and Ciro like they were my family, and they were running for Congress, and I became a part of their family, and the I don't know how do I what's the words to use here? The strain or the pull on the family when you do this is really immense because so much it's like you have this family that you love, your husband, your wife, your kids, but now you're having to run you have this campaign family, and then you have this constituent family, and you have all these people that are pulling for Katie's attention. Tell me about your immediate family and how they're dealing with you running, and tell us if you have kids, how many kids you have, or if you have a husband or a wife. Like, tell us about who they are because I think when folks get to know you as a person, it also opens them up to want to support you and know more about you.
Absolutely. So, one part of my story that I didn't talk about yet was my father, who's a real instrumental figure in my life. And he lives and had grown up in Dimmitt County, which was actually one of the two counties that were gerrymandered out of the district. And so I kind of joke that the Republicans knew I was running before I knew I was running because my grandparents were down there, we have family down there, et cetera. And he grew up as a migrant farm worker. And then he, put himself through community college, went to university, went to law school, became a successful attorney, just the epitome of the American dream. And so when I decided to go into private practice, he said, let me share something that, has really worked for me and I think helped to make me a good parent. And he said, I've always treated you and your mother's always treated you like you are, because my mother was a paralegal at his office at one point. And they said, we just always treated you like our VIP client. Like you were a VIP client. You came first. You had a recital, you had a meeting, like you were put in that VIP spot. And so I've always done that with my kids. Like, yes, we have a campaign. Yes, I have other, I'm still a practicing attorney. I have other clients. But my kids have always been kind of my VIP clients. And so we've tried to do that. But we do have 4 children. 4 children is a lot of children.
Wow.
And so funny story, we actually went from 0 to 3 kids in 9 months. So my husband and I foster to adopted 2 biological baby boys, and we adopted them on June 2nd, and I gave birth to our daughter Ava on June 10th. And so that week we went from 0 to 3, and we've kind of hit the ground running. And then 2.5 years later, we had a surprise baby. He came along, and we decided 4 was good. So we have 4 kiddos. And one thing that my husband and I have always done is even when we just had 3 kids, we're like, if you're going anywhere, you take one of the children. You want to go to Target, take a kid. You want to go to HEB, take a kid. And so that's just what we've done. And so the kids get to spend one-on-one time with us. So they get out of the house, helps the other parent who's there with the other 3 kids. And so I've done that with the campaign. So if you see me on the campaign, you'll probably see one or more of my kids with me. And they really, really enjoyed being able to do that. My first grader actually drew a paper, like he drew one of my signs during his free time, and he went around and asked his classmates who wanted a sign. Like, my mom can take you a yard sign, but you have to ask your parents. And so this little girl told him, she's like, I want a sign. He said, okay, well, you have to ask your parents. She said, I don't need to ask my parents. It's my house too. Like, I want
That's
so
awesome.
I was like, "Good for you." And so the mom did come up to me. She's like, "Hey, my kid wants a sign. Can I grab a sign?" I'm like, "Of course, we'll bring you a sign." So they're really good campaigners.
That's really awesome, and, everybody has campaign kids, stories, and I think by the time this campaign is over and you get through the summer, there's gonna be one good campaign story after another. I'll also tell you that nobody thinks anything is more cute as watching a little kid wave your sign on the side of the road somewhere, so just know that that's a secret weapon. I'm looking at your kids now on your website, and they are beautiful, so I think you do have a secret weapon with a lot of these pretty kids. Your old man ain't that bad either looking at him, but these kids are awful dang cute. Uh, the last few questions that I have as we wrap this up are fun questions. So all the tough questions are behind you now, so feel some relief. The first question is about food, which is my favorite topic. And the question I've asked all of the campaigners, folks that are candidates that are running, a couple ways. I'm going to ask you because you're in San Antonio. it in a couple ways. One is, what is the dish that your husband and the kids demand the most often from you for you to cook?
Mhm.
A. And then B, what is the meal that your mother or when you were growing up that you demanded? And if it's the same, it's fine. But if it's different, it's fine as well. Start with what you cook for your family.
So, during quarantine, we had a lot of time here at home together. And so we would experiment with different recipes. And so, one thing that they really like, and what I've noticed is even if I didn't get it from TikTok, if I tell my kids I got it from TikTok, I'm like, oh, this is a TikTok recipe, they'll eat it. So they eat the best. So we call it TikTok spaghetti, but I don't think I got it from TikTok. I think I got it from Pinterest. But essentially, it's like a spaghetti casserole, and so they all really, really like that. We're actually having it tonight, so they're excited for that. But you use Alfredo sauce with the noodles, put that in, and then put whatever kind of meat you want, whether that's we use like hot sausage because they like the spice in it, and then we put that with regular tomato sauce, and then you put um Parmesan cheese and mozzarella cheese on top and then bake it for 30 minutes, and they absolutely love it.
Oh, this makes me hungry just thinking about it. And then what was the dish you loved growing up?
Oh, so many, but I would say my number one dish that I love that I still request is my father's brisket. He makes really good brisket that he always has to get up, and he starts at like 3 in the morning, and so whenever we ask him to make it for us, it's definitely a treat.
And so, as a good old East Texas boy, we like our briskets too. Now you're talking my language. Would he smoke it for a long time, covered in foil in the smoker?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
For all of you at home, that's the proper way to do it, where it stays moist. It's very juicy. It's got a lot of fat on it, and it marbles down. And you want to talk about combining East Texas world and San Antonio world. Some of the best eating you'll ever have is a brisket taco on some homemade
Mhm.
tortillas.
Yes, absolutely.
So now we get into the culture of your vibes growing up. And the way I ask this question is, in baseball, when somebody goes to bat, they play a walk-up song that the baseball player normally has requested as their call it their pump-up song. Some people call it their workout mix or their workout song or something they listen to when they're sewing or walking. But I need to know what's your pump-up song that you would like to listen to?
So I really love "Choosing Texas" by Ella Langley. I think that's probably one of my favorite songs right now. But as far as a walk-up song, it would probably be I like country, but I also like rap music. And so I like "All I Do Is Win" by DJ Khaled. So that's one of my favorite walk-up songs.
Nice. For everybody who's listening now thinking we're just having a cooking show and a pop rock song, this is Katy Padilla Stout, who's running for Congress in Texas 23. It's an open congressional seat. She's running in a seat that Congressman Tony Gonzalez, who has decided, not on his own, but was decided for him, he would not seek reelection because he found himself in a lot of controversy and turmoil. Her website is Katy, that's Katy, 4FOR, Congress.com. And Katy, I'll give you the last pitch you have to voters out there, and more so voters, my listeners, of why you were running and your closing remarks.
Thank you. I think that this race is one of the most important races in the country. As you said, it's one that was not on the list for Democrats or for Republicans. And so we've really taken the nation by storm. I think that if you truly support change and you want someone in Congress who will represent the people, who is really adamant about helping others, whose priority are happy, healthy families and children, that you will help us come in here so that we can flip this seat from red to blue and ensure a majority in the U.S. House of Representatives next term after the midterms.
Thank all of you for tuning into the Rocha Revolution. Tune in next week because we're going to stay on this same theme. I've got a great Latina who works for Vote Vets from Dallas, Texas, going to be joining me. My sister Tristan's going to be here next week. And so, for all of you there, don't forget to like this. Make sure you're sharing it around. Don't forget to go to Katie's website and to give her a donation. Until next week, y'all be good.